Hi, this is round one of practicing sample interview questions. Scenario is you're sitting in a banking job or promotion interview, and you've been asked this question of what does risk adjusted growth mean to you in banking? Um, what you should quickly do is decide which structures you're going to use to answer this question. Structures are very important. If you're answering any question without structure, you might start very impressively, but later on forget what you're talking about or are not able to link things. Hence, it is absolutely critical that whenever you answer a question, it has to be in a particular structure. I generally go with a 3 point structure where I get 3 points why it should not happen or why what I will do. But because this is a definition question wherein the panel is not judging how I think, but is judging what I know, it asks me what this thing actually is. Hence, I will use the definition, contrast, and application structure. In this structure, we first give the definition of what we know the concept is, then give the contrast, that is what will happen if this particular aspect is not followed, which in a way is also talking about the importance of this particular aspect. And last is application, that is how we'll apply this into real life scenario or in our job scenario, in our work scenario. So for me, this answer would sound something like risk adjusted growth refers to achieving business growth while appropriately accounting for and controlling the risks associated with it. This is the definition part. Then I'll switch to the contrast. In contrast, growth without risk consideration may boost short-term numbers, but can lead to asset quality issues, compliance failures, and in turn financial and reputation losses. This was the contrast. What will happen if this is not followed? And last part of my answer would be the application, which is in banking, asset risk adjusted growth would typically mean growing advances in deposits with proper due diligence, strong credit appraisals, adherence to controls, and continuous monitoring so that growth remains sustainable and does not translate into future stress. This is a complete answer. In case I want to woo the panel, I am very confident about any cross question coming about it, then I will end it. And also, if I can think of a punchline, then I will end it with a punchline something like, overall, it is about balancing. Overall, risk-adjusted growth is about balancing the returns with risks to ensure long-term stability and profitability. This is the complete answer. I'll repeat the answer and then we'll break it down. Risk-adjusted growth refers to achieving growth while appropriately accounting for and controlling the risks associated with it. In contrast, growth without risk consideration may boost short-term numbers, but can lead to asset quality issues, compliance failures, and in turn, financial and reputation losses. In banking, risk-adjusted growth would mean growing advances and deposits with proper due diligence, strong credit appraisal, adherence to control, and continuous monitoring so that growth remains sustainable and does not translate into future stress. Overall, it is about balancing return with risks to ensure long-term stability and profitability. Now, why did we follow this structure? First, we gave a definition. We do not explain what we know about it, or we do not explain in a way expressing or indicating that we think the panel does not understand what the topic is. Panel knows what it is, so you don't need to explain. What you need to do is you need to define, express that you know about it and you're confident what you know about it. And the best way to do that is define, not explain. Once the definition is done, we try to portray why this topic is important, and the best way to do that is give a contrast. What will happen if this aspect or this approach is not followed? And in the end, we try to tell them that we do not only know about the definition or what this topic is all about, but we have also practiced it in real life scenario in our job till now, and for that we give a real life explanation of what and how this topic can be executed, or what this definition or this concept means in a real life scenario. That becomes a complete answer if you can add on a punchline at the end with it. Now pause this video, go back. You've heard what I told you about it. You try and answer this question. Trust me, even if you remember what all I said, when you start speaking, you might not be able to cover all the three bases, or you might not be able to use the banking terms which you ideally should use. So go pause this video, practice this question once. If you're able to do a superb job, great. If you think that you could not, then come back to the video, listen to it quickly again, and try attempting the answer again. Within 2 to 3 attempts, I am very sure you'll be able to give a perfect answer. And because you practice this 2 3 times, in future, whenever this topic comes across, you'll be able to answer it like a pro. Now let's move to the second part. Next, let's take a different kind of question. Assume that you're sitting in a promotion interview and you're asked that what will you do differently as the next grade officer compared to your control role. Now, this is not a definition question. This is a question which tests how you think about it. I generally choose the 3 level structure for answering any such question, where I have to express how I think or how would I approach a situation. Here the 3 levels, or the three structure levels could be: first level would be I think of is thinking, second could be how I handle people, and third could be how would I execute everything that I am thinking of, or all the plans that I have. So in a way, it first level, which is thinking level, would be mindset. Second level, which is the people level, would be leadership, because I'm moving to a higher level. I would like to express a position of authority, not a position of authority, position of leadership. And last would be execution, where I have to express ownership and accountability, not only in myself but inside my team also. So this would be the structure. I've thought about this in my mind. I took a very long time. We have to generally do it in 5 to max 10 seconds. Otherwise, if I'm really thinking, what is he thinking about? Why is he not answering? But then with practice, I think that will happen quickly, and also while giving the answer. But this is the structure I'm going to follow. Now let's see how can we answer this. Here, one more thing to remember is whenever you're moving to a next grade, you are generally moving from an execution level to a oversight level, or from a lower oversight level to a higher oversight level. So your answer generally has to be structured in that way. I would most likely say something like this: the key shift for me as a next scale officer will be from execution to ownership and oversight of outcomes. There are 3 major areas I will focus on. First is thinking and approach. Now, moving from task execution to a more strategic, risk-aware perspective, ensuring decisions are aligned with long-term objectives of the organization. Second, people and culture. Now, building an open, accountable team environment where expectations are clear, communications are transparent, and ownership is shared. Third, execution discipline, ensuring proper processes are efficient, timelines met, and outcomes are consistently monitored and improved. Overall, my focus will be on delivering results through people with clarity, accountability, and strong governance. Now, in this question, what I first try and do is I told that I have clarity of thought about what is going to happen in the next level. I am moving from execution to oversight. Second thing I did was I divided into 3-part structure, so it will be easier for me to communicate whatever I am thinking. Third thing what I did was I spoke about the first layer of the structure, which was thinking and approach, where I said that moving from task execution to more strategic, ensuring decision aligned with long-term objectives of the organization. So what here I'm trying to say is, as a senior level officer, I will try and align with the bank's or the institution's objective at a with a more intent. So that will be, or I'm saying that will be my basic intent. So that's a good positive sign which you can give to the panel. Second thing, we talk about people and culture, where we said that the communication has to be transparent. It has to be expectations have to be clear, so everyone knows what their roles are and the ownership is shared. That means there will be definite ownership of every task, and when there is ownership, there is accountability. That means if something goes right or something goes wrong, there are always repercussions, and these repercussions will be clearly identified and assigned to the right person because there is clear ownership here. So I'm communicating a way of working here, which is generally the preferred way, wherein communications are transparent, they are clear, everyone knows what their responsibilities are, and in case something goes wrong or something goes right, people get their due recognition, reward, and otherwise also. And third, we said execution discipline, where we said we will not only think about nice ways of doing things, but we will ensure that we will execute everything in a time bound manner, and we meet the outcomes, and these outcomes will be constantly monitored and improvements will be undertaken. Now, second and third are related. Then we talk about accountability and monitoring, and here when we talk about monitoring, we are saying that every outcome, every action will be monitored, and the outcomes will be taken note of, and that would be our focus. And in the end, we just added a punchline saying that overall, focus will be on delivering results to people with clarity, accountability, and strong governance. That is one punchline that covers all the points. Now, is there a different way you do want to touch that? It's up to you, but make sure that you use a structure. You first decide which structure you're using for this answer, and you use that structure. Very, very important, very critical. Now, let's move on to another question. Now, the next scenario is that you are from a retail branch. You're a branch head, and you're sitting for an interview, or you're at level one below the branch head, and you're applying to become a branch head, and you've been asked this question. How you deal with it? Question like, if a branch is achieving high business growth but has frequent compliance deviations, what would you do as a branch head? First thing to do is think about how you're going to answer it. Which structure are you going to use? Now, this is not a definition question, so you cannot go with that structure of definition, contrast, and application. This is a question about how will you approach a situation. So we will go with that 3-point strategy or 3-layer strategy. But at the same time, this is a question which talks about, or which hints about, an expected answer where balance is very important. So whenever I come across a balance question, what I think of doing is give a balanced answer for it, which is I would typically approaches like business versus risk, what I understand of it, how balance can be achieved in this situation, which would be my stance, and third layer would be what actions I will need to take to achieve this. So what is business versus risk situation, what is my stance, and what actions I will undertake to achieve this particular balance which I'm looking for, which is I'm a branch head and the businesses, there's a good business in the branch, but the compliance levels are weak. So my answer would be something like this. In such a case, my first stance would be that growth without compliance is not sustainable. So correcting this imbalance becomes an immediate priority. So I'm clarifying my stance here that I want to correct this situation. I will not let things go ahead the way they are going ahead. There are 3 actions I would take. I'm back to the answer. So in such a case, my first stance would be that growth without compliance is not sustainable. So correcting this situation, this imbalance, becomes an immediate priority. There are 3 actions I would take. First, immediate is containment.
What's happening?
Identify high risk deviation and correct them on priority to prevent potential losses. That is the first step. I will identify wherever the risk is highest. Risk based approach is what I'm following. And I will find out the deviation, find out the gaps, plug the gaps. Second, I will strengthen process discipline. This is very important. Introduce tighter checks, maker checker controls, and periodic reviews to ensure compliance is embedded in daily operations. This, in other words, is called compliance culture. This is very important part of your answer. And third is capability and accountability. Train staff with real cases and fix clear ownership for compliance, ensuring deviations are tracked and addressed. What I'm trying to say is I will get training with real life scenario, case study kind of a material, so that people understand who is accountable and why they are accountable and what can go wrong if they do not undertake what they are expected to do. So this is the basic idea. Let me throw in the entire answer. How would I answer it? In such a case, my first stance would be that growth without compliance is not sustainable. So correcting this imbalance becomes an immediate priority. There are three actions I would take. First, immediate risk containment. I'll identify high risk deviations and correct them on priority to prevent potential losses. Second, I will strengthen the process discipline. I will introduce type of checks, maker checker controls, periodic reviews to ensure compliance is embedded in daily operations. Third, capability and accountability. I will train staff with real cases and fix clear ownership for compliance, ensuring deviation and ensuring that deviations are tracked and addressed. Overall, the objective is to align business growth with strong controls so that growth remains sustainable and risk adjusted. What we tried to do here is we divided our answer into three layers, try and convey that we are giving a overall 360-degree solution for any problem. First thing, we are identifying the problem. We are communicating our stance coming from a position of authority that this is not acceptable for me. I will immediately rectify this. How will I rectify this? I will identify the risk. I will go by risk-based approach. High risk areas will be addressed first. Second, I will put the compliance culture into practice by introducing into daily actions, and there will be very frequent monitoring, and wherever there are gaps, they are quickly identified and quickly fixed. And once you have embedded this into daily tasks, it becomes part of life. It becomes a compliance culture, and it has a better chance of being followed. And third, capability and accountability, where I will train staff, tell them with real life case studies what is at risk and how they should act. But in case there are still gaps, there is accountability. The deviations will be tracked and addressed. And in the end, I give a punchline saying overall the objective is to align business growth with strong controls so that growth remains sustainable and risk adjusted. Now pause, think about it, tell me, or in your mind, in front of a mirror, say your answer. If you're not happy about your answer, come back to this, listen to it again, and go back to your mirror again, say your answer again. And for now, let's move to the next question. Until now, we were talking about strategic questions. But what if they are asking you very simple questions? How will you think, structure, and answer those questions? Let's take a very simple question. Imagine you are working in a retail branch. You go for an interview. The question is, how can a branch improve customer growth in a competitive market? Very simple, basic question. But again, because it's very simple, you should not start answering without a structure. First thing you will do is think what structure you want to use. This is again not testing your knowledge. This is testing how you approach things. Because this is an easy question, I would suggest keep it tight. Do not take a very long time into answering simple questions, because then they will not move on to difficult questions and not test you well enough to take a decision whether you fit for the next role or no. So keep it short. Keep the 3-point structure, because it is a thinking question. They want to know how do you think and how do you approach difficulties, or how will you execute a plan. So keep that same 3-layered answer. Maybe talk about business, customers, and execution, and keep it very tight, very short, so that they are happy with the answer, but they're ready to move on to a difficult level wherein they check you on a strategy basis, on a much difficult strategy basis. My typical answer for this would be something like there are 3 key levels of improve CASA growth in competitive market. First, target acquisition. I will identify high potential segments like salary accounts, SMEs, local business ecosystems, and build focused sourcing strategies. What I'm trying to say here is that I will identify the market, see what is the market potential, and target that market potential. So that is my first segment, target acquisition. That is understanding a market and targeting and achieving what you've targeted. Second, relationship and service quality. Deliver consistent service, quick issue resolution, and personalized engagement to retain balances and deepen relationships. Now, once acquisition is done, second most important part is you could take care of those relationships and make the relationship stronger, make them deeper, get them more products, so they are more engaged with your bank and more connected with your bank. Third is active engagement and cross sell. Leverage existing customers through salary tie-ups, digital channels, and product building to increase CASA yield. So overall, CASA growth requires a combination of focused acquisition, strong service, and continuous engagement. Now here, what I think is, while answering this question, what I concentrated on was only CASA growth. It depends upon your prior experience. If you've been part of only CASA acquisition side, you can answer it this way. If you've been on the asset side, you can make it a mix of both assets and liability, that is CASA and loans, and answer it, but keep your structured in the same way. That is 3 layers. You would say that there are 3 key levers to improve your business. One is target and acquisition, which is identify a market, find out what works in this market, what potential this market has, and target that potential and source that business. Second is whatever you've sourced, relationship and service quality. You need to improve relationship and service quality and deepen the relationship, make the relationship stronger. And third, you have to have active engagement and cross sell. If the customer is having only 1 or 2 products, make him connected with your bank with 5, 6, 7 products. The more connected he is, the less probability of the customer leaving your bank and going outside. And if you follow these 3 layers of actions, it is highly probable that you will be able to achieve great CASA and loan portfolio growth. These were some of the examples. For more examples, I would come up with episode number 2. Till then, keep practicing. The more you practice, the better you speak. Good luck.